All right, gentlemen, thinking caps on for this one. No BS, no funny business, no memes. All right, let's take this one seriously. What if Perfect Cell, or before Perfect Cell, let's just say, what if Cell trained in the hyperbolic time chamber? And let's take this from the moment of the Cell saga, where essentially he gave the Z Fighters time to train, prepare, and gather their warriors, their heroes, so to speak. So Cell being in the hyperbolic time chamber, one crazy cool concept. Shame we never saw it and we probably never will. But two, most importantly, him training in that hyperbolic time chamber, the limits depends on exactly where he's at. Like I said, if I'm going based off of him giving the Z Fighters that kind of pre-warning, the Cell games is starting in X amount of days, go, I'll be here. Cell was at his perfect form at that point in time. If we're going prior to that though, then you're talking about a Cell that would just essentially gain the maximum level of power he could in his imperfect form, and then once finally going through that final absorption, amplifies his power. To me, it's one of those things where his power is amplified, but it depends on which version of Cell you're looking at, because again, Cell's a unique character where you're not just talking about one character in one version. There's literally 3 or 4 different types of his character that you could be talking about that to me would have very different results in the hyperbolic time chamber. This is not a one size, one shoe fits all scenario. So I would like your comments in the comment section below in regards to how you think the hyperbolic time chamber would personally affect the different versions of Cell, to see if we're on the same page. I'm going to go based off of perfect form Cell just to say it. If Cell actually had the ambition to train and said, I want to do this hyperbolic time chamber thing, and let's say this was purely for the sake of martial arts, not because Cell was actually going to destroy the planet, but because he really wanted to see how strong he could be. And Goku, being Goku, actually would take his word and say, if you promise not to destroy the planet, Cell, we'll let you train him, right? Okay, it's Goku, y'all, okay? Like immerse, right? Totally something he would actually say in the moment if he had, quote unquote, Cell's word. Of course, Vegeta, Piccolo, and the more reasonable, skeptical others would be like, Kakarot, you're an idiot. This is never going to work. But like I said, this is a scenario where actually Cell does keep his word. Technically, he kept his word, giving the Z Fighters time, right? You know what I mean? For the most part, like he did allow them to do what they needed to do to come prepared. He didn't bum rush them in the middle of their training as soon as they flew off, right? So, Perfect Cell. I think it puts the situation in the fight of, let's say, Perfect Cell versus Goku clearly out of match, where Perfect Cell is like clearly unanimously stronger based off of having that little bit of extra time. Because remember, Goku said he had hit his limit, hence why he left the fate of the world to Gohan. He's like, I cannot get any stronger. It's not that I'm not trying to fight Cell to the best of my ability. Yes, he did had that sparring session, and he could have possibly done more damage, and he's had moments to kill Cell, but y'all, it's Dragon Ball, okay? Like, you could have thought he had a perfect moment to kill Cell, you would have thought it was over, and then there's some retcon thing that happens, or it's like, oh look, it's just one little Cell, just, gosh, remember, Cell had cells from a lot of different characters, so there was to me, there's still a lot of loopholes where you could bring him back. It's just like, he's a character that it seems the artists even today just don't want to really draw that much outside of the perfect Cell Max thing. And I guess drawing a giant, big version of Cell is okay. Make it make sense. So again, him in the hyperbolic time chamber in his perfect form, who is competing with him? Unless you're thinking that he's capped, I don't think he's capped at all. He could have trained, he could have got stronger. When you really think about that arc and that saga in its entirety, it could have entirely been avoided. The whole showdown of Gohan and Cell obviously never had to happen, because that whole timeline is messed up. Future Trunks coming, and then all the different things and time capsules. It's such a rabbit hole and such a merry-go-round of lovely chaos and nonsense. It's actually quite nostalgic for me, despite some fans actually really hating the Cell saga, or at least outside of like the Gohan Cell showdown moment. I actually like a bit of its clunkiness, because it was kind of a transitioning weird time in Dragon Ball, and I think it made sense given the context. Now, if you're talking about imperfect Cell, if you're talking about if you're talking about these different versions of Cell, again, I think they get stronger, but do they get infinitely stronger? No, I think perfect Cell has the most to benefit from training in the hyperbolic time chamber. I think the other versions, obviously being imperfect, still needed that final absorption, that final piece, really be able to extract and maximize their power to their fullest potential. Without that, I don't think it's happening. Just my thoughts. Again, let me know yours in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel for weekly Dragon Ball discussion deep dive content. As always, stay tough, stay in the fight. I'm there with you all the way, brothers. Stay strong. Take care. See you later.